It's 9 o'clock on the dot in the Eastern time zone, and we'll wait maybe like 3 or 4 minutes to get some more folks joining us, and then we will get started. So continue the idle chit chat. And feel free to introduce yourself. I think we have Hariaksha from Arizona.
Yeah, hello. Hariaksha, Bubba.
Hi,
Nice to see you.
Hi, this is Justin Paglino. I ran for Congress in Connecticut's 3rd District.
Great to see you again, Justin.
Hi, Justin. Congratulations on your run.
Thanks. Well, I got enough to stay on the ballot for next time.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Petitioning was hard.
It is.
Yeah.
And Joshua, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, I'm Josh Juneman, member of the Minnesota delegation, member of the Minnesota CC for the Green Party, and chair of the Minnesota Green Party's Coordinated Campaign Committee. And I ran for city council this year.
Great, welcome.
Nice, welcome. Great. Any other new folks?
Sandy from New York, the New York coordinator, volunteer coordinator for the Hawkins Walker campaign. And
lovely
Charles.
Actual sunflowers in her background, not just virtually. And I think that's Charles Strauss from Philadelphia.
Yes, howdy.
Welcome. And who's the 850 number?
Clark, Kim O'Connor, Clark.
Welcome. Where are you from, Kim?
Florida.
Great.
Who is 917?
Oh, it's Helen.
Helen from New York.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to rename folks here. And then David, who are you? Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm from Delaware. I'm currently the chairman of the coordinating committee of Green Party of Delaware.
Great, welcome.
Welcome.
Here we go.
Excellent. All right, well, we're up to 12. I'd say 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we will officially get started. How is the weather where everyone's at?
It's cold in Florida. I'm up in North Florida, and they showed on the weather that we were colder than it was in Bismarck, North Dakota. Today.
Wow.
Wow.
Which is what exactly? How cold is it?
33.
Ooh.
Yeah, but I wanted to say I'm not credentialed like all you guys. Henry Lawrence is our Florida Coordinated Campaign Committee representative, and he just sent me information about this meeting because I did a long shot campaign up here in North Florida for Congress. So I'm not really up to speed on y'all. I'm just dialing in because he said to.
No worries. That's how you get started. Welcome. Yes, welcome. Looks we have a new person. Robin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hey, hang on. Here I am. Well, I'm in Beverly Hills. I ran for Beverly Hills School Board in the November election. I ran for Beverly Hills City Council in the March election. In March, I got 5% of the vote. In November, I got 8% of the vote, and I need 20% of the vote to get a seat, approximately.
All right. Well, welcome. It's always good when folks from California are joining us.
And this year was my first election. I'd never run before.
Well, welcome.
Congratulations.
All right. I see a few more other folks. I see Tama Yeager. Carlos, do you want to introduce yourself? And/or David Young, maybe in that order?
Hi, Carlos. First time coming into one of these meetings. That's all.
Great. Where are you from, Carlos?
Los Angeles, California.
Excellent. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. And I see Jay Walker from Pittsburgh. And Tama is on our steering committee from Virginia. And David, do you want to introduce yourself? David Young?
I just want to give some support to Justin Paglino, who ran in the state. I'm from Connecticut, and so basically I want to pass this over to Justin. But yeah, so I mean, he ran for is it the 3rd or 2nd district?
Yeah,
Well,
thank you, Dave.
the 3rd district, yes. In the state of Connecticut for the first time. And yeah, I just want to pass it over to Justin. I was going to run, but I didn't, or someone else was running.
Well, there's always next time.
Yes, right.
And
all right, welcome.
You've run in the past, right, David?
Yeah, well, I ran sort of in the Green primary for the 4th district of Connecticut, and Cass won that, and I think you both got the minimum that you needed to get to hold the ballot. Am I correct, Justin?
That's
okay.
Correct. Yeah, we got the 1% you need to keep the ballot line.
Okay. Yes. So that's crucial, and I suppose we need to talk about the frustrations on the presidential side, because there's so much fear and loathing going on there that it would be tough for any presidential candidate this year.
Sure. All right, I think we have one more person who maybe hasn't introduced themselves, and that is Mary.
Hi, Mary Sanders, Hartford, Connecticut. This year was my 3rd run. But this year was my first run for state senator, last year city council, and the year before state rep. And my percentages have gone from like 1 3/4% up to this year 3 1/4%. So not the 5% I hoped for, but a slow but steady increase. But I learned a lot this year. First time I had a little campaign team, and looking forward to learning more and continuing forward.
Welcome.
Great. Yeah, welcome everyone. All right, it's 9:08 here, so I'm gonna get us kicked off and started. Hello everyone, my name is Hillary Kane, and I am one of the members of the Coordinated Campaign Committee, or the CCC as we know it, at the national level of the Green Party. And our job is to promote and support our candidates and campaigns. And one of the ways that we do that is providing these periodic, we strive for monthly, though we haven't been quite getting that mark this year, but our periodic training series where we really try to go over all aspects of campaigning from, soup to nuts, A to Z. And what better time than December than to think about, the end of a campaign cycle. Next month, we're hoping to do a webinar on starting a campaign and running for office. So we try to time them for the calendar year, for the cycle. And so given that last month was election day, and hopefully you've had a little bit of time to decompress, this is a good time to think about how to debrief your run and think about how to transfer all of that energy from your campaign into ongoing party building. So I'm really excited that we have 2 very knowledgeable and experienced speakers and presenters with us today. We have Gloria Mattera, who is a fellow steering committee member of mine at the national level from New York, and also from New York, and one of our national staff members is Michael O'Neill. So I'm going to turn it over to the 2 of them. I'm going to ask that everyone else put themselves on mute so that we can hear Gloria and Michael, and then at some point we will open things up for discussion and Q&A. So Gloria and Michael, take it away.
Great, thank you, Hillary. Welcome, everyone. Hillary said I'm Gloria Mattera, currently co-chair. One of the co-chairs is the National Party and also co-chair of the Green Party of New York. I've run for office several times. I've also worked as deputy campaign manager for Stein Baraka campaign and helped on numerous campaigns, and really excited that there's also some candidates or people interested in running for office here. And I'm sharing the presentation tonight with a good friend and comrade, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael O'Neill and I reside in Syracuse, New York. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm the communications manager for the Green Party of the United States, a position I've held for just about over a year. But prior to that, I worked on campaigns in the state of New York and in various leadership positions and at times personnel positions for the Green Party of New York since 2008. Was the first campaign that I worked on. It was our getting our 2008 presidential nominee on the ballot in the state of New York. And I am really passionate about party building and making sure that when we run candidates, when we run campaigns, that as a party, we are stronger than when we started a campaign. And so I'm really excited to dive into this topic with all of you this evening.
Great. Thanks, Michael. So we'll get started. We have slides. Maybe we'll make that available for people, but we're hoping that you certainly can put any information in the chat. I don't know if Hillary, if you'll keep track of that, but we'll also have opportunities a little bit later on for people to share some of their own experiences. So we can get started with the next slide. So it seems kind of elementary, but it's important when we talk about a debrief that it's really a systematic process, right? Because throughout a campaign and even around the campaign, people are talking a lot, sharing information. But this is a time where hopefully in your campaign plan, if you had one, that in your timeline you put aside at X amount of time, we're going to have our campaign debrief and how that's going to happen, right? And you really using your core campaign team for that, the leaders of your campaign. And you really want to figure out what worked, what didn't work, what lessons can you learn for your next run. And also that might be for another candidate that will run for that office or in part of that district, or even your local and state party. Because what we want to continue throughout tonight is talking about how to make those connections between a candidate's campaign and your local or your state Green Party, particularly local, where it's a little easier for candidate and the local party to come together. Next slide, unless Michael, you want to comment. Michael and I are, the way Michael and I do a presentation is we basically kind of do a back and forth. So he's going to chime in or I'm going to chime in and go from there.
Great, but I'm happy to talk about the next slide. So in terms of the debrief process itself, it's a pretty high bandwidth conversation you need to have. And as many of you have just experienced, and many of you have experienced in years past, an election campaign is a emotional, exhausting, physically demanding challenge, right? You are up against the power structure and you're doing it as a green, which means that you are operating against the entire duopoly power structure cartel and the corporate power structure, in addition to the stresses that normal candidates go through when running for office. And so at the very least, in COVID times, you would want to do this as a video conference. Ideally, it would be face-to-face if that's safe to do. And also, it's really helpful if you could have a facilitator, someone that you trust as a group and that you feel like you can be open to, but you can have some objectivity and some neutrality as they're facilitating it. If you're the candidate, we strongly recommend against you facilitating the debrief.
Right.
Even if you're the campaign manager, I would recommend against that too, because you're too close to it. And this is the time where we need to be able to step back and get that 360-degree perspective and be honest about, what did we do great? What could we improve on for next time? And, what do we want to do again similarly? And what do we want to make sure we do differently? You want to make sure you allow enough time for this. A full day would be optimal, but we understand that, time constraints are a thing, but try to at least give it like an entire morning or an entire afternoon, ideally a full day. Again, ideally, if you can bring into your campaign debrief some answers or feedback from your supporters, like if you sent out a survey to your volunteers or solicited feedback from them in some other ways so that you have some input from people who can't be in the room with you during the debrief, or it would be impractical to have that many people in the room with you. You're still carrying some of their knowledge and their feedback into the room and can review that. And also it's important to do it soon. And we know the push to election day can be so exhausting, and the temptation to let this slide can be great. But if you really want, especially from the party building perspective, which is so essential for us to make sure that we're doing better and winning more every year, ideally you want to do this before Thanksgiving. And if not before Thanksgiving, the harvest holiday, however you characterize that, before the end of the year. And the reason is because people's impressions are going to fade very quickly after Election Day. And this is the time to capture that information, to get those hard-earned nuggets of wisdom to make sure that the next candidate or the next campaign doesn't have to make the same mistakes. And we would recommend, and we're going to touch back to this theme frequently, that you include your post-campaign debrief in your campaign plan. Because immediately before Election Day, you're in get out the vote mode. You're not thinking about campaign debrief, right? And then on Election Day and immediately after Election Day, the candidate, the campaign manager, the high-level staff are going to be exhausted, and high-level volunteers are going to be exhausted. So if you have actually laid a little bit of groundwork as to how your debrief is going to work way back when you actually started your campaign, you will be doing your future selves such a huge favor. And you'll be much more likely to follow through on a campaign debrief if it's part of your campaign plan and you have some steps laid out, as opposed to like, it's the day after Election Day and now you're just like, okay, now what? I guess we got to unpack all this, you know, and you're like the Avengers at the end of the first Avengers meeting, just like shell-shocked, eating shawarma, you know. Try to avoid that situation. Gloria, I'm going to advance the next slide if you feel comfortable talking about that.
Sure. Actually, the next few slides are really kind of a sample agenda that you can use for your debrief. Obviously, you're going to tailor it to what you want, but even though this is going to be your core campaign leadership, and you all know each other, and you know, almost feel like you know them better than your family because you spend a lot of time with them, you want to create an atmosphere where it's a combination of people are feeling a little bit more relaxed. And looking at each other in a different way, right? So because we know that there's good tension and bad tension in a campaign between, the leadership roles, the campaign manager, the candidate. And so you maybe want to come up with some kind of, fun thing to do. You've been working together for a while, but maybe there's, something about each other you don't know and people could share or do something a little bit more, way to get to relax. And then really focus on what's positive. No matter how hard it was, maybe there were frustrations, obviously it'll come out in what went well, what didn't. You did an amazing thing together as a team and you want to keep that spirit. And so you want to say, like, how well did this go for us? What went well? What did we like? What did we feel, that was success? Like really hone in on some great new volunteers. How many votes we got? What was our best social media, hit in terms of likes, right? And then because we won't say it enough, it's like your campaign plan, if you have one, hopefully, really outline the goals of your campaign, from how many votes you were hoping to get, how many volunteers, how many donors to bring into your campaign, did you get some new Green Party members, how often were you in the media, did you make some progress on an issue, did you get into some debates or candidate forums. And so you want to look, if you've had those goals, and take a look at what the outcomes are, where they became a balance, right? Were they too far afield? Was it unrealistic when you were making those targets in the beginning? What targets did you hit? And that also helps to see how you might improve, how you might move on to the next campaign. Go to the next slide, Michael.
Yep. Okay, so next up is oh wait, that's the sample agenda. Continued, yep. Perfect, awesome.
Yeah.
So moving on, you want to brainstorm like what are the top elements that you want to explore more deeply. again, we've talked about how this is a time-intensive process, and so hopefully you have the habit in your Green Party meetings, whether they are for a campaign or not, of having timed agendas for your meetings. And because the issues that we grapple with in our work, trying to build an independent party of the left to challenge the parties of war and Wall Street and the corporate power structure, is such challenging work. It's easy to kind of fall down the rabbit hole. So you want to have a timed agenda and then budget that time on the most important elements that you want to get into. And as it says on the slide, you don't want to pick areas of activity where you really weren't active. So if social media was not a big part of your campaign, and for a lot of different campaigns for different reasons, social media may not be a huge factor, then don't spend a lot of time on that. And you want to limit your discussion to the top 3 to 5 elements. If there's a lot of ground to cover, allow the people in your debriefing group to indicate what they would like to prioritize, maybe using some sticker dot voting on a wall chart if you're in person, or they could use annotation in Zoom if you're meeting over Zoom. They could put a little heart stamp next to the things that they want to talk about, or they could even just itemize that in chat. And then you want to discuss each element as a whole group, or if you're using something like Zoom or another video conference system that allows breakout groups, then you could do some small groups. And so maybe if you had a group of people who are focused on fundraising, maybe they have a fundraising breakout, and the same thing for your social media team or for your field team or whatever. It's going to make sense depending on the size of your debrief group and the size of your campaign team in general, and how specialized you were in the different tasks that you took on. Gloria,
carry on. Sure. Right. So if you're working in small groups, obviously you want to share that information with the other groups, get their reaction as your whole big team back together again. And then, what are the future plans, right? Are you going to run again in 2 years or 4 years? What might you do differently? How enthusiastic is that team about staying together, planning for the next run? Which we know often starts when the other one is over, if you're planning that, especially with a 2-year period of time, and what do you need to develop for that, right? And then you want to generate some takeaways, some action items that can be used. And we're really trying to think about how will that connect, and we'll talk more about that as we go along, to your state or local Green Party or for future candidates, right? Is there, maybe, if you're in a district where you're running on the even year for, say, state legislature, is there someone in your Green Party local that you know already, or even in your campaign team that wants to run for town council, which is on the odd year, next one? Maybe that's a way to build towards that. And then you want to look and see, well, how do we start integrating and connecting? Hopefully you had some of that connection already with your local Green Party, but how can we continue to do that? What happened in this campaign that we can continue having in our local campaign?
For this next slide, there's a lot here. So Gloria, maybe we should split this one. I can start with the left column, well, we're only going to talk about a few of these, but
We are.
yes. So and this slide deck will be available to folks to download after the presentation is over. So if you don't happen to grok every single one of these bullet points, fear not. But we've divided up the different elements of your campaign to review between the internal factors, and we're defining internal as the things that your campaign had immediate or most immediate control over. So the literature that you produced, the volunteers and how you recruited and managed them, the press releases that you sent out for traditional media outreach, the social media content that you put out, your ballot access effort, getting on the ballot, what that situation was for you, your get out the vote drive. And also a really important element to talk about is your technical infrastructure. Did you use a dedicated database like Nation Builder or Civi CRM or a similar system, or did you just use a constellation of spreadsheets? And did you use an email broadcast application like MailChimp or again, Nation Builder? Did you use any phone banking or text banking applications like CallHub? Or did you do your own kind of DIY phone and text bank? How did those things work for your campaign and your campaign team? Did the people who needed access to those tools and to that data, were they able to get access, or was that really hard to share that with them, either technically, or did people have trouble using the software? Was it more costly than you thought it would be? Did you have trouble getting your emails to not land in people's spam folders? These are really important aspects of campaign strategy and campaign tactics that if you can solve some problems in advance for the next time, you will be on a much better footing. Gloria, any points on there that you wanted to highlight that I didn't?
I just want to add that, look, there's a lot of elements. I think it's important to have them like this specific for campaigns, so you can kind of go through each one and see what maybe where you, some of that you may not have done as much, right? And you're going to find that it's some of the things are going to be stronger than others. And I don't really have anything to say about anyone in particular. I think that what you're going to start to do though is if you look at this fine detail of where you could have or where you would coming down the line, you know, ramp that one up really mattered, or what was really successful that you felt like your team really covered.
Right. If you are running a local campaign, hopefully during your Get Out the Vote effort, as you were campaigning leading up to Get Out the Vote, you were tracking who your supporters are in your campaign database or your supporters directory. And then for your Get Out the Vote, you were then contacting those supporters again and making sure they actually went out and voted, or asked them what help they needed to go vote. And you got confirmation from them that they went out and voted. And if there were people who over the course of the campaign said they supported you as a candidate and would vote for you, but then during Get Out the Vote, you were never able to reach them, or you were they never told you whether or not they voted, those are the people who are most likely to support your future Green candidate, whether it's you or someone else who runs in the future. But you will now know in advance that they're the ones who are going to need extra special help to ensure that they actually get out and cast their vote on election day, or during early voting, or mail-in voting in the brave new world that we're in. I should say scary new world.
Scary new world. I also want to say, just point about kind of how much time was put into kind of each element of the campaign, and how that's a good thing to look at it during your debrief. Like, did you know, were you a candidate, or were you a campaign manager and set up so many events for your candidate that they were doing a lot of different appearances, but perhaps that reduced the amount of time they made phone calls? And so even figuring out how much time went into that, I think is really important. And it doesn't mean it's like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. It's just the idea of, I think, even when you make a campaign plan, you lay those things out. If you don't keep going back to it, and we know the kind of multitasking and kind of fever pitch that campaigns get into, or not, having a small amount of people doing a lot of work, that you can get lost about that. So I think what we also want to emphasize is, you have that campaign plan, or if it's not a full plan, at least you had some goals. Keep going back to them. And that's going to remind campaign managers more than anybody else, because that's too hard for the candidate to do.
Thank you, Gloria, for mentioning the campaign plan, because that reminds me that you want to refer back to your campaign plan, which should have some metrics that you recorded ahead of time about what was the amount of money, for instance, that you projected you would fundraise. How many events were you going to produce? How many press releases were you going to put out? What kind of media coverage were you expecting to get? Hopefully you had some of those SMART goals, specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely goals in your campaign plan, or they developed over the course of your campaign. And so you want to compare, for instance, with fundraising, how much money were you able to raise during your campaign? If that number is wildly different from what you projected in your campaign plan, then you want to explore why that was. And chances are it's probably one of three scenarios. Either your initial expectation was unrealistic, you wildly overprojected or underprojected what was possible to fundraise given your capacities, or your plan was flawed or the plan was not followed, which can happen during campaigns. It's a real mess running a campaign. It's a beautiful mess, and we do our best to put one step in front of the other. Or there might have been circumstances beyond your control that affected the outcome. So for example, if you started planning your run for office like a good green candidate at the end of 2019, your event schedule for 2020 was probably very different than what you expected. And bless your heart, because you had to pivot, especially around events and for a lot of things. And those are circumstances that were beyond your control. It's possible those circumstances might arise again. And if you learn something by adapting to those circumstances, that's something that future candidates can learn from. And also, while I've been talking about numbers and recorded metrics, some of these elements are more quantitative, like in terms of numbers of dollars raised, but some of them are qualitative. So for instance, you want to talk about the number of volunteers you were able to bring in, but also during this debrief process, you want to really hone in on who were the superstar volunteers that came up through your campaign. Who are the people that like you've got your eye on for potential leadership positions as future candidates or just future high-level positions in other campaigns, or maybe this was their first campaign, but they just showed really great promise, and then they're a good candidate for maybe a campaign manager or a volunteer coordinator in the future or in your local party. And then, that was it between the quantitative and the qualitative. Gloria, anything to add before I advance?
No, let's move on.
Great. All right, so now we're into the external elements.
Right. So this is what really kind of what was the public facing for your campaign? You know, what were you doing kind of out in the campaign world with voters? Right? You want to know, what was your opposition like? Where were they strong? Obviously, if you won the campaign, things would be a little different when you're talking about them, but you're still always should debrief and look for where you could have changed things or could have done things a little bit differently. But the strengths and weaknesses of your opposition. Michael just talked about this is more unusual than anything else, which is, the pandemic and how people had to make that change. Sometimes there are other bigger events also that happen. My first run for city council was a long time ago. I'll date myself now in terms of what I tell you, but that ended up, being the bombing of Afghanistan, the invasion of Iraq, all that kind of happened. And then, because September 11th happened, the terror attack happened on primary day. And so our messaging had to change. Our literature had just been printed. We did something new. We had to put something else in there. And interestingly, the opposition changed too. They went from being progressive to adopting a lot of that, put out the American flag and, the patriotism and jingoism. And so, that's something to really think about that happens. What was your relationship to the Green Party or local Greens in the area? Looking at the demographics of your district, what's the history that was going on in that district? Who ran before that? Was it an open seat? What's the research you did on the incumbent? Were you in any debates or candidate forums? These are really important, and we know that often our Green Party candidates and other independent candidates get marginalized for that. And even building into your plan is if you are not invited, disinvited, or not told about something, how is your campaign going to react? What is your team going to do internally, and what's going to happen outside? Are you going to be protesting? Are you going to do something, kind of counter to that? Are you going to muster your volunteers and people in the district to be able to fight back against that? And Michael, I'm going to let you say something about the post-campaign power map if you want to, because you're an expert on that.
Sure, yeah. And so power mapping is an important skill that I really strongly encourage you to explore online, and we should do future trainings on it if you're not familiar with that technique. But it's looking at the organizations and individuals that make things happen in your community or within the district or sphere of influence that your campaign applied to. And hopefully you did a power map going into your campaign so that you had a sense of what were key constituencies that you needed to reach and individuals or organizations that would most directly and powerfully connect you to those constituencies. But after your campaign, also do a power map to see how did the political landscape shift over the course of this campaign. Who were the people that emerged as power players and whose where was influence diminished? And what are relationships that were strengthened between your local Green Party and your candidate over the course of the campaign? And maybe where were some conflicts that arose that occurred between yourself as a candidate, or between the Green Party and the other political players in your district? And actually mapping that out visually can be really helpful.
Great, thanks.
So the takeaways, again, we really want to point to what did we learn for next time? That's the top priority for why we're spending all of this time on the debrief, is we want to really focus on what did we learn that we can use the next time we run as Greens for office in this district or in this community. And we also want to really explore how all the data that has been generated by the campaign, email contacts, donor lists, even content that your campaign has produced, that it's saved and used by the party in future runs. And like I said, that's volunteer information, donor contact info, donor history. Ideally, you, again, during your Get Out the Vote project, you actually tracked who confirmed that they went out and voted for your candidate, or who pledged that they absolutely would vote for you. Those are the people that you want to reach out to next time as you're building the base for your next campaign or your party's next campaign. And then also the infrastructure that you developed. Maybe you started a Nation Builder account for your campaign. Maybe your local party can adopt that, or other types of software or hardware. I can't tell you how many people I know who were able to use their campaign laptop that they bought as a campaign expense, a necessary campaign expense, and that became the county party laptop, or even their own laptop for use for Green Party work for years to come. And there's nothing wrong with that. Video equipment is also a great is great hardware to come out of a campaign, and keep using that to produce content. And then the leaders that emerged and the leadership skills that your existing leaders developed during the campaign, and information about your opponents. Where were they weak? Where did they screw up that you can use against them in future campaigns? And where did maybe coalitions of opposition mobilize that you weren't anticipating and that you need to keep an eye out for in the future?
Great. Move on. Yeah, I really like this, and I didn't do enough of this, and certainly in my some of my campaigns, and I think this really is really kind of a great learning tool, and to make sure you have in there, which is like who supported your opponent, right? How much money did they raise, and where did that money come from? Sometimes that's just kind of knowledge to be able to use it. Sometimes you're going to be able to point out conflicts of interest. That might be some of the things you want to bring up about the opposition if you're running against them again, or if that candidate wins and they're in office, and to how you're orienting towards the person who's in office, where they spent their money, right? Local vendors you may have missed. I think we're always talking about in the Green Party, can we use union shops? Can we use, local mom and pop? Can we make sure we're giving business in the district where we're running and where we're trying to make a difference? Maybe we missed out on that. There's no market on one candidate getting that, and businesses would be happy. Often, I have worked with mail houses and printers that have been doing the print for several different candidates, and so I think that's where did they advertise, right? What events did they have? What kind of venues did they come up with that seem to draw a lot of attention? Like, all that is really kind of a rich piece of information for you to use next time. Michael, I don't know if you want to add anything there.
Nope, that's all I got. Just to remind people to please go on mute if you're not currently presenting.
Do you want to take this, or do you?
Yep, So, I talked about before how this is a really intense conversation about a profoundly intense shared experience that you all had. And this is where your neutral, objective, trusted facilitator can also help out, is you want to make sure as you're really digging into as you're doing the post-mortem, as they say, of this really intense experience, that you're keeping this about actions and not about people, not about personality conflicts. You want to avoid assigning blame. You want to focus on just what can be improved, right? Focus on your shared goals of running better and more competitive and successful campaigns in the future, and be realistic about the time and capacity of your group. If you come in with an agenda that's just horribly overloaded, you want people to come away from your campaign feeling good about it. And if even the campaign debrief is a train wreck, it's going to be hard for people to feel good about that.
Great. Don't have anything.
So the next slide is up, Gloria, if you feel like taking that.
Yeah, I think we both probably chime in on this, but I mean, what we really want to do in this session is, in addition to talking about how to do your debrief and the components of it, is like, why are people running for office? We'd like to, there are lots of different reasons why that happens, but we're here as party organizers and talking about party building. And so how is that campaign that you ran or that you were a part of really integrating with your local, your state Green Party? We know that on the different levels, local candidates and local Green Party chapters, or even informal group of Greens that may not have formed a complete chapter but are there in that district, it's a little bit easier to make those connections than if you're talking about a higher office in state party, but that is also possible. And so how was your campaign connected to the local Green Party or local Greens? Did you reach out to them first? Did they get excited about having a Green Party candidate in their district they can vote for? And so that's a group of people that you want to be able to stay connected with and continue to do some party building with. Is there an endorsement process that the local or state Green Party has that you availed yourself of in terms of resources, getting to appear in front of them, be able to say you were endorsed by your local chapter? And then on the other hand, was there a Green Party chapter or a group of Greens that were helping to promote, support your campaign, and maybe even, depending on their strength and how robust they are, be able to provide you with some resources, whether that's helping financially or coming out and being a group of volunteers for you? I suggest that after you have your internal campaign debrief with your core campaign staff, that you then have a debrief or report back with the leadership or the coordinating committee, or maybe even all the enrolled Greens that are in the chapter in your area, in your district. And then, how much did you talk about the Green Party? How connected were you as a Green Party candidate? Were in addition to your platform issues, did you talk about the Green Party overall, about the 4 pillars, the 10 key values? Was that in your literature? Did you refer to that? Now, we know they're nonpartisan races, so we know you can't refer to that when you're talking about that. But how else did you connect yourself beyond being, hey, I'm the Green Party candidate for City Council, to what the local Green Party or state Green Party is doing, and what the philosophy and the foundation is for our party as a whole? Then, thank you, Michael, for doing that. I couldn't see. And then so the name recognition that hopefully you have, the excitement you generated in your area, in your district, obviously among fellow Greens and then the voters, so you're the person they may be identifying as the Green Party. You're the face of the Green Party for that moment. And how can you bring that visibility? And we're going to talk also a little bit in a little while about that excitement and that infrastructure that you had in this time-sensitive campaign to building your local party or building up a local Green Party chapter. In some areas, there may not be a Green Party chapter. It's possibly your candidacy, and after the fact that you run, people get to know who you are, they know who you are on the issues, could be a catalyst for bringing local Greens together that hopefully you connected with, maybe starting something a bit more formal. Do you want to add to anything, Michael?
No, I think you covered it.
Right.
Moving on, in post-campaign party building, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is that your entire top level campaign team, from the candidate, campaign manager, that they be profusely expressive in their gratefulness to all the volunteers, donors, and supporters. You want to thank them a lot. People have given their time, their money, their energy to support this run for office. And so the first words out of your mouth once the election is done are thank you. And keep saying that. As you move into this debrief process and as you're looking into the future, you want to think about this run, organize, run model. So you run for office, then you're building off of the credibility that you generated as a candidate to organize and build your base, to bring in people who learned about the Green Party through your campaign into your Green Party organization as people who are now consistently participating and even beginning to take on some leadership roles in your organization, and who are committing support in more substantial ways, like perhaps becoming a local or state party contributor or contributing to the national party. Then as you do that and you get stronger, then you run for office again. Maybe not you specifically, but another Green in your district runs for office again, and you build off of all of that energy that you've been organizing in the interim. You want to make sure that you are being visible, and that means as a candidate that you're out there speaking in public forums, like your city council or school board, whatever is most relevant to your expertise and what you ran for office for, or what your candidate ran for office for. And also you want to create your own opportunities to speak and show some leadership on issues by organizing public forums. Again, with COVID, that's more likely going to happen over video conference than anything else. But still, that's a service that we can provide our community. And it's an important place for Green leadership to be presented, but also it's a great place to identify potential recruits, either for rank and file members of your party or future leaders or future candidates. And also, we want to emphasize that the campaign email list and social media account should remain active in the post-campaign period, and at the very least be cross-promoting your Green Party announcements, your local party announcements and events for the next 3 to 6 months. And there are people that came to your campaign. In our culture, in our political culture, I think there's a lot of people out there who are much more likely to connect to a candidate with a human face and a name than to an organization, which is an inherently abstract entity. And so there are people who are, one of the most valuable aspects of running a campaign, of running a candidate, is that you have a human face out there. And Gloria's referred to a number of times of how like this candidate has been the face of your local party in many respects. And so they've connected to your candidate. You want to maintain that connection with the candidate, the person, but you also want to do what you can to build an additional connection, an emotional connection, a sense of passionate support for the Green Party. And that's what we're going to talk about here in some of the coming slides. But one of the first things that you can do is having your candidate email list and candidate social media accounts that people have been following closely talk about the Green Party and talking about how important it is that we show up to this upcoming event or meeting or rally or Zoom or whatever, and try to get them as excited about that as they were for their campaign events. Next slide. Right. Okay, and Gloria can talk about that a bit more, building off of her experience running for local office in Brooklyn, unless she's messaging me right now to let me know I screwed up on the slideshow.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
There was another slide I thought somewhere, but I think we can do this. And
oh, well, let's see. There was a group activity.
No.
Nope.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, it's fine. I think there may be. Right. Anyway, so right, this is the.
This is the one I just talked about. Did we miss this one?
Yes, we did.
Okay. All right, that
No,
makes
we didn't.
sense.
No, we didn't.
No, we
We
didn't.
miss it.
Okay.
Fine, we're good. Okay, vote. So I'm just going to give you an example of, so, I mean, it was a little different for me because I ran for office several times and locally, and my first run, I was not connected to the local Green Party, right? It was more of an independent run. I came to the Green Party, but very quickly, became a Green and got connected with them organizationally. So not all candidates are going to be in the same position by the time I had several runs, but I think the examples help is like, so in two situations. One, when I was running for city council, I said the second time there was we were in the middle of the Iraq War. There were many young Arab and Muslim men in my neighborhood and connecting neighborhoods being detained in a detention center that was just outside the district, but fairly close. And that became a campaign issue for me that I talked about a lot. And then as my campaign was winding down, obviously that was still going on. What I did was start bringing in the Green Party more. And then we, kind of promoting the idea that the Green Party was now a weekly presence at the, vigil and the protests at the detention center. And so it was talking about the Green Party platform in terms of the war, in terms of immigration, in terms of how they treated detainees. So that was really great to kind of like expand my one platform plank into the bigger picture of what the Green Party stands for. The other thing is really to kind of personalize, as Michael, we were saying, Michael and I were both saying, be the face of the campaign. When I ran for borough president, after the campaign debrief and having a special time to thank volunteers and come together around that, it was a very big campaign. It was a time when a documentary came out really kind of exposing the scandalous, behavior of Walmart in terms of their workers. We were able to get the opportunity to screen the film early on before it really, kind of went public. And so we hosted that, and the way we pictured it was the Green Party of Brooklyn and, Gloria Mattera, a former candidate, invite you to this very special screening where a lot of people, I think, came because they knew me, they were part of my campaign, and they liked my campaign, they were voters, they were supporters. But during that time, they not only got to hear about the Green Party, they got to meet other kind of core people in the Green Party in Brooklyn, get to introduce them, get to talk to them about it. And so really integrating what my campaign was and trying to keep that momentum going, because I'm not going to be the candidate all the time, but there, as Michael said, those 3 to 6 months when you're as a candidate promoting the party events, I was trying to be that bridge to be able to keep people connected to the party, interested enough if they were not enrolled Greens to maybe enroll in the party, if they're enrolled Greens that wanted to vote for Green but never been active, to get active in something that our local party was doing.
Thanks, Gloria. And what Gloria's really highlighted here is that when you're running for office as the candidate, you need as many people to learn your name and learn your issues and what you're running on as much as possible. In the post-election campaign phase, you now want your supporters to learn about and connect with as many other people in your party leadership or just your party organization as much as possible. You are now the schmoozer. You are the connector. You are going to be, in some cases, when we're allowed to physically gather together, literally handing them over, like connecting them to other people, because especially if you're running multiple candidates in your party organization, there could be entire parts of your party who didn't really talk to each other that much during the campaign, just depending on how these dynamics work out. Maybe a bunch of people were working and hyper-focused on candidate A and some on candidate B. And for whatever reason, for many reasons, you would have supporters of candidate A who never met the supporters of candidate B. As the candidates, you want to be introducing them to each other and introducing them to your county party chairs and the people who make your local organization or state organization run, and telling them about what a great person your state party chair is or your county party chair is, and how you've relied on them for years. You want to build those connections. So again, that trust and that belief that they've instilled in you as the candidate, they begin to see you endorsing other people within your party organization, and they will feel confident that these other people that they're working with, who maybe they don't have the same intense personal connection that they do to you as the candidate, are worth getting to know and worth working with, and that they feel inspired to do that and stay involved.
Great. So we also wanted to ask any candidates or previous candidates or campaign staff, if you have any particular examples about how you've done that, or how you've seen that happen, or how you might be doing that in the near future.
And Hillary, just before we transition to that, would you mind taking a moment to make Gloria and I co-presenters in this
Yes.
Zoom?
Yep, and I noticed while I'm doing that Joshua has his hand raised. So Joshua.
Thank you, Hillary. Yeah, so something that we did during COVID and kind of what we're doing now is starting to do what you guys suggested, doing those kind of training meetings, but kind of have it be share it all on social media, give people membership, people that are already members and their friends kind of join and talk about Green Party, and have the candidates who ran this year and ran in other cycles who are up for election maybe in 2021 or 2022, talking to folks. And another big thing too, on top of COVID, here in Minnesota, and when I ran in city council, because it was a special election, that was right during the George Floyd revolution and the whole mass worldwide protests that happened. So having to, we really helped with engagement too, because we were able to help pass along resources, pass along other groups that are helping and working along with too here in the cities when something like a global pandemic or a revolution happens.
Great, thanks, Joshua. So it sounds like you had current candidates, former candidates, people interested in becoming candidates, all coming together with other Greens to kind of integrate, work together.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. Anyone else?
I'm looking forward to trying to turn, some energy into building the party locally, and I haven't had a chance to do that a whole lot yet, but I've got a lot of good ideas from listening to this presentation. I'm also wanting to learn more about how to organize a campaign. I was looking on your website, you have some other, I see you've given previous talks, campaign schools on that topic. So I look forward to learning more about that, because I'd never done this before and I was kind of making it up as I went. Didn't really know how to organize a campaign, found it a little hard to even find a experienced campaign manager. That alone is really a challenge. But I do have an email list now and a Facebook following of a certain size, and hope to parlay all that into ongoing. I like the idea of hosting your own events too, like hosting a movie screening or something at a library. All sound like great ideas. It's a big district, like the third. It's a congressional district, 700,000 people. I thought, I have all this time. I could go knock on doors getting ready for 2022, but it's like 700,000 people. I don't know how many, like 200,000 doors. It's just.
Right. So Justin, so campaign math is important, right? Because there's 700,000 people in the district, but like, what was your magic number to win, right? So that's going to help you, or the next candidate who runs in that district, target how many votes do we need to win, and you can extrapolate from previous elections, and then figure out where the centers of where you're most likely to get votes, or where the areas that you need to invest in, where you can get people who are on the fence. And Gloria, if I could just ask you to check the chat for a note that I left for you just a moment ago.
I see it. That's absolutely fine. I just want to comment to Justin quickly. Like, first one is hard, and really I'm glad you're going to avail yourself of the resources, but please also reach out, because some of us who, be happy to even brainstorm with you, and, and kind of talk about whether it's your debrief or planning for the next run or how to pivot to build your party.
Right.
Yeah. And if I could just chime in one quick second. I'm always a fan of, especially if you're planning to run again, be the visible vocal opposition to the incumbent, for the next 2 years, right? Like write that op-ed once a month about whatever they voted on and how you would have done it differently. If you were running for school board, I would have said, go to attend school board meetings and watch and see what they're doing and make public commentary. And the fact that you were a candidate now, gives you a little bit of credibility and allows you to get that op-ed published.
Right.
And you'd be surprised, they're probably more interested in hearing your opinion now that you're no longer a threat in the campaign. But try to just stay visible and stay on top of the issues and what your incumbent is doing.
Yeah.
I wanted to share a story.
Actually, if I can just really quick build on something from Justin said, is that hopefully, Justin, that there are people on your list who, when you ran for office this past year, they didn't have the skill set or the knowledge to serve as a campaign manager. But this is the time to point some of the people on your list to the webinars that we have on the CCC page, or different ebooks and other training resources out there, and form a little study group and have people look at well, what are some skills we can build now, so the next time someone runs for office, there are people who were energetic but not informed this time who could step up to be a volunteer manager or even a campaign manager. Thank you.
Yep.
Right. And do we have someone else who's going to share, or someone else coming back on? Are we having Howie back?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. Very quickly, short story. This is from my perspective as a voter, just to add to and elaborate on what Gloria told us. I'm going to preface this by saying I was young. So back in the time of the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan, I was in high school. But I was working with an organization called Peace Action of New York State. And Peace Action had executive directors who introduced me to, introduced me intellectually to Howie and to Cynthia before I knew what the Green Party was. Because I'm going to tell you, during my youth, I immediately went to register Democrat after hearing Barack speak. However, one of my colleagues at Peace Action got me to vote for Howie, and I had never voted for a Green Party candidate before. That was powerful. It was only later on until I discovered what the 10 key values and the 4 pillars were, and became really enmeshed in the Green Party. But the leadership, they were certainly the face of the party for me, and that made a difference.
Thank you, Jennifer. So Howie, hi Howie. Are you going to say a few words?
I'm just listening. Am I on the video? I kind of.
You are on the video.
You're on the video.
You were. Now you're not.
Yeah, there you are.
Now you are.
All right. I can't see if it's a good picture.
It's looking
all
good.
right.
Well, everything I've heard makes a lot of sense. It's really important to, keep plugging after the campaign. Figure out what you did well, what you could have done better, and to use whatever lists and standing you as a candidate got to keep building the Green Party, especially if you get elected. I'm worried about Emmanuel Estrada in Baldwin Park, 26 years old. If you know anything about the city, it's corrupt as hell. He's in a Shark Tank. He needs support. And if you get elected, the Democrats are going to come for you. So you need to build your organization, whether you win or lose. And a campaign is, a real good way to find people that support us. And then you got to keep working with them. You just can't stop. We got to be year round, not seasonal. So off the top of my head, those are just some thoughts I could add.
Thank you, Howie, and happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Howie.
Okay.
Happy birthday.
I don't know if there's anybody else, any other candidates who want to share the story, but also we're going to have a little bit more time for questions and do another activity where we could share, but I didn't want to cut off any candidates who may want to talk about a way that they've pivoted or something that's come up for them during this conversation that they may want to do now that they've finished their run.
I just want to.
Sorry, is that somebody else?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say something off of what Howie said about the candidate was winning and the, how did I already forget it? But he said it was very corrupt. We learned here this last election cycle in the primary / general section here in my city that the Democrats are doing that here too. They are up to trade, and it's sad that it's happening. And then when they say they want to do something and this is talking about Democrats, like defund the police, then go back on it like they're doing here. I don't know if many of you following about what's been going on here in Minneapolis after the revolution, but a lot of them are going back on what they said, and it's very disappointing. But they still keep getting elected, and they still are trying to hold the power that they can. And we need to put pressure on them. And Howie's right. We need to really organize and focus on those areas that are heavily corrupted by the duopoly system on either side.
Thank you, Joshua. So we've obviously brought this up several times while we were talking, and how we would have done things kind of before COVID. Lots of face-to-face, lots of meeting voters, your meetings together, your gatherings with your volunteers and your campaign staff, public events. We know a lot of that has changed. We don't know how long that'll continue or what else may come our way to create different conditions. So just wondering, like, how many candidates who just ran for office recently, did you have COVID related issues in your platform? How did you present that? What was that like? Because obviously we know you had challenges just being a candidate during that time, but was that something you talked about when you had opportunities to talk to voters or put out on social media or your press releases?
Well, Medicare for all being one of my top issues kind of was easy for that to tie in to people desperately needing healthcare, but also the closures that created the economic turmoil for a lot of people, and how that was just an exacerbation of pre-existing inequality, was all a chance to talk about a need for a UBI or something along those lines, in terms of direct aid to people who can't afford to make ends meet.
Great. I think Jay has his hand up.
Yeah. So we didn't talk about COVID a ton on the campaign trail. Like, our fracking was our big issue, but we did change our literature so that the literature we handed out on the last day, on election day, had a lot of had a COVID section. And I also did a lot of signal boosting of commentary on university COVID plans, because there are 3 universities in my district, and the universities all seemed very intent on running things as usual, collecting tuition, collecting rent for students, and the students were kind of like uprising against that. So I did a lot of boosting of that.
Right. Thanks, Jay. And that's great, because that's the things, like, you had an issue that was really important and germane to your, your district, or, the office you were running for, and you stuck with that. But you made that pivot to really, connect with what was happening for people right there, and made it very concrete, right? Using the universities and what was happening right in your district. Thanks. Anyone else?
Is there room for another voice?
Yes. Who's that?
Is there room for another voice?
Yes. Would you like to talk about something related to the COVID issue in the campaign? Hi.
Well, relative to the campaign, I ran for the governorship of West Virginia in this race, and it was a have-to situation. we had to poll at least 1% of the vote for the Green Party, the Mountain Party candidate, in order to maintain ballot status and ballot access. I accomplished 2 out of 3 objectives that I had set. The first being to win if I could, which was a long shot at best. The second was to offer people, progressives especially, a choice, seeing how the 2 main candidates were mirror images of one another. And the third objective was to be able to air some progressive issues. And to a lesser extent, I was able to do that. Something that would have, COVID hurt everybody in West Virginia equally. It just hurt the 2 main candidates, that is the 2 candidates from the one party, the least, because they had the money to get around it. I was able to do radio ads, which helped, but I was excluded from the debate between the Democrat and Republican gubernatorial candidates. And this was done by the Broadcasters Association. So something that we also need to have is more of a national presence to assist candidates like ours who have to run. Personally, I would have preferred to have run for Congress in this November election than for the governorship. But a congressional race would not have kept ballot access for us. So that's what we had to do. I sent in my survey when it was requested from the Green Party, and I never heard anything back. So I assume it was received, but I don't know. As I said, to repeat, we need to have some more feedback from the National Green Party, especially in these statewide races. Over.
Thank you. Tell us your name, brother.
I'm Danny Lutz. Just another 4-letter word.
Thank you for sharing that. Michael, do you want to cover the last couple of points on the agenda?
Sure. So we're asking about how these issues can be carried forward by your local or state party or local Greens in whatever kind of formation they might have. And that might involve maybe supporting or starting mutual aid in your area or building off of existing kind of COVID assistance that's coming out of the community. And so did anyone have any thoughts about that? Like maybe the way that you talked about the COVID crisis during your campaign and how your state or local party or local Green chapter can carry that forward in 2021. The crisis continues, but the crisis is changing its shape, right? As the economic effects drag on, 2021 budgets are going to be horrible in terms of cuts to public services that people are depending on even more now than before. And then there's going to be the issues around things like vaccine availability and things like that. So what does that bring to mind for people?
A mutual aid idea is interesting to me, but I really don't know anything about how to organize one or where to find guidance on how to organize one.
I mean, first thing I would recommend is check to see in your local community if there's anything existing, however small. And then if there is literally nothing, my second point of advice would be probably to find the anarchists in your community, because there are probably, chances are, some group that have been doing some form of either food not bombs or books through bars or other kinds of grassroots peer-to-peer mutual aid. The Cooperation Humboldt project in Humboldt County, California is online, and their projects and activities are available for perusal, and leadership from there have spoken on that. And yeah, I'll stop talking. And I see Jay has a hand up. Jay, did you want to speak on this?
Yeah, my local Green Party in Pittsburgh, we are co-sponsoring an event with DSA. It's part of their kind of national event about COVID relief and Green New Deal. And instead of having me speak, like I speak at a lot of events on behalf of our Green Party, we're having our next candidate speak, like a candidate for Pittsburgh City Council next year. So we're trying to like get him more speaking opportunities, get him more press coverage. He's going to be in a press release, that sort of thing.
That's great, Jay.
Yeah. And I think there's some other hands raised, but I can't see where they are.
Hurry, Aksha, Bubba.
Go ahead.
Yeah, regarding COVID, we can maybe still get emergency relief, court injunction or legislative, change the statute. We've started reaching out to our representatives, state representatives in Arizona, to maybe follow Illinois' example or Vermont. There were a couple other states, Maryland, I think, got electronic. Well, we won't get electronic signatures, and I don't really see the value here in Arizona. But following the spike in COVID, I think it's another opportunity for us to get some relief. And then this new People's Party may help us in that respect, because this is a Republican legislature, and they might see an advantage in giving ballot access to alternative parties like the Green Party and the People's Party, just to dilute the vote.
Thank you. I want to make a comment. I know, Justin, you asked about mutual aid, and that it's organizing that itself is really a big job. And we also know, one of the balances we're always trying to keep in the Green Party is, doing our activism and organizing, and then making sure we're running electoral campaigns, right? And that's why we're trying more and more to figure how do we integrate that. Mike, he said, run, organize, run. Something we did during the time of Occupy Sandy, there was a much bigger group of people taking care of people who were, lost their homes or, needed food, needed places to live, needed shelter. But we just kind of came as a local Green Party and said, so we want to be a part of this. And so the cooking on Thursday and bringing food was the Green Party. That was our day. And so sometimes we did it that way. We did the similar thing with, kind of the annual big cleanup that they'll do in the park, right? There's a big group of people doing that. We're not going to take that over. We're not going to organize something different because it's already happening, but we'd go there in our Green Party shirts, or if it was a campaign year, our candidate shirts, and we would say, so, here's the Green Party of, Brooklyn, and, we're cleaning up that section of the park. That's ours, and we're contributing that way.
And it's really important when your group shows up that the first conversation is about what, as the Green Party, can we do for you?
Right.
What would you like help with? Not, here's what we think you should be doing differently, no matter how passionately you think they should be doing something differently or how convinced you are that you're correct, right? But how can we help? And what can we add to this? And then once you build some trust and you demonstrate that you are really there to help, if you do have some ideas about maybe how to adjust things, then you can have that conversation. Yeah, that was my point there.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting close to the end. I don't know if there were any other comments about this in particular, or any other general comments, obviously, about debriefing and party building, connecting your campaign.
It's relevant. I just wanted to add what's more to what you and Michael have said, that when you come into the community attempting to offer aid and to organize, make sure it's a lasting presence. Don't be like the candidates who come around only when it's election season, because I've had a difficult experience with a candidate who came to a community organization, but she was only there for a short period of time and made the intention clear that this is about garnering votes. So we need to be committed when we do the outreach to the community.
Great, thanks. So I think there were two more hands, Joshua and Jay.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, so for COVID, what Michael said, reaching out to anarchist groups and other local groups. I know Here in Minnesota, the Green Party, we're working in St. Paul to do a meal delivery program for families, and we do that every week. Here in Minneapolis, since the revolution, my little community and a couple of my surrounding neighborhoods, we created different Discord servers, which is kind of like a chat system for people. And I've been active in that in several different ways. I've been bringing other Green Party candidates and people and members along with me too, and getting people signed up to be Green Party members. We set up a little free food box. Is kind of like we have these little free libraries around the cities here and throughout the state of little like take a book, leave a book kind of concept. This one, food that we all take part in and put food in. It's not managed by a group or the neighborhood organization. They do have input and they do contribute to the program, but it's all community ran. We have community safety programs. We have cop watch. We have CPR first aid trainings. At least once a month or even more. So yeah, it's an ever-going thing, and it's just organizing and looking with your community, starting with neighborhood associations and stuff like that.
Thank
It's
you.
impressive. Thank you, Joshua. Jay?
So this slide is about COVID, but I think another issue from this year is police reform. And I think that issue is really powerful too, because it's local in a lot of places. So you don't have to deal with Congress or, it's like sometimes federal issues feels like you're shouting into the void. But with local issues, it feels like you're organizing, like your city council people, you can go to their house and stuff like that. And here we're participating in a ballot initiative to ban solitary confinement with like a whole bunch of coalitions. And people have been calling for defunding the police all across the country in the streets. And the Democratic Party has shown that they'd rather tear their own party apart than like actually listen to reduce funding of bloated police budgets. So I think that's a big opportunity for our party. And just having something local to organize just feels so much more tangible than something like Medicare for all or like, the stimulus checks that we deserve, but it's sort of like maybe outside of our organizing power. So I'd urge people to consider that issue. All our city council candidates, our borough council candidates are really focusing on that issue here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I 100% agree with Jay. Sorry, Gloria, you were
No,
going to
no,
say
go
something?
ahead. Go ahead. I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah. No, that is a great issue to take on in 2021 or to continue moving forward. Regarding COVID, I do just want to highlight that I think a lot of the economic fallout of COVID is going to come from state budgets in terms of state revenues falling short and then states passing on those cuts to municipalities. So there are somewhat closer to home points of action there that I really want to encourage Greens to tackle. But yeah, some important points well taken there.
We're tying that austerity that's coming to the overfunded police budgets. In
Even
Pittsburgh,
better.
they're cutting every single department and raising the police budget. And we are definitely talking about that with connection to COVID.
Yeah,
even
that's
better.
great. Really good connection. I think we're really just about out of time. Hillary? Are we not?
Yeah, it is 10:24, at least for those of us on the East Coast. And I just really want to thank the two of you. I think this was a great discussion. And I do hope that we had folks on the call tonight who not only had just concluded a run, but who were thinking about running again. Because I think, as you guys pointed out, beginning with the end in mind, right? And thinking about your debrief from the beginning and putting it into your campaign plan is really a great strategy. And I think when you think about all the things that you could even be debriefing on, it helps you think about, how to build your campaign on the front end. So thank you both so much. I've already posted, fastest posting ever for a CCC webinar. I've already posted the slide deck to our webinar page, and I'll open up the chat again and I'll put that in the chat. And in a day or two, I'll have the recording on there as well. So please feel free to spread the word and share with your other Green Party friends. And of course, visit the page again. I will give a shout out to Jay for every once in a while, he'll send me a text or I'll see in our state party Slack that he just like randomly went and listened to some old CCC webinar and found it very helpful. So hopefully it will be helpful for the rest of you as well. So thanks again. Any other parting words of wisdom from Gloria or Michael or
all of
Holly?
you who are candidates this time around, and
Yes.
excited to hear who might be a candidate, and ready to step up for that. There are a lot of resources, but I know sometimes that can be overwhelming. Sometimes your state party has some resources. Obviously, Hillary's just talked about what the CCC has, but try and ask in your state party, or reach out to other states. If you're on any Green Party list, you can certainly, it's easy enough to find our email. Michael, myself, steering committee people are available, contact in terms of the national website. And we really and reach out to people who you may have heard about, who've run for office before, candidates that you see, even if they're not in your state, because I think we have to continue to have those communications, build them stronger, and be able to learn from one another.
Definitely. I put the CCC email address in the chat. So ccc@gp.org. Definitely ask us one-off questions. If you want one-on-one campaign advice, we're happy to give it. So yes, and refer you to other folks as well. So thank you all.
Great.
May 20. Yeah.
Before we cut, just before we leave, if after that, I want everyone to say happy birthday to Howie after Hillary gives this announcement.
No, I was just gonna say that's it. So let's.
You say something about May or something coming up? No, there was a.
Nope.
I
think I was gonna say like May 2021 be a better year for all of us. Yes.
Got it. Okay. All right. Okay.
So December
Right.
closing words. Yeah.
Got it. So on the count of 3, if everyone can unmute, everyone unmute. And I'm going to do the count of 3, and then we're all going to say happy birthday, Howie. All right. So I'm going to wait until everyone's unmuted. This is your chance.
We're not going
all
to
right.
sing. We're not singing.
No, we're not singing. We're going to say,
shout out.
This is still our presentation, Tava. We're not giving over the reins. All right, on the count of 3, we're going to say happy birthday, Howie. 1, 2, 3. Happy
birthday, Howie.
Rough man.
We love you.
Okay.
Howie, I bet you
Thanks,
can't
everyone.
remember a birthday where you were constantly told happy birthday all day long.
Yeah, Zoom does a lot of things. But thank you, everybody.
All right. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
So you need a moderator.